I did, yeah. It's a little more aerodynamic, so, yeah. Okay.
All right, Minister, so just, first up, I guess, the Americans are saying the balloons they got shot down, now they are guessing they are either commercial or benign. Canada share that view?
Well, first, since the outset of the events that have taken place in North American airspace, Canada has acted swiftly and decisively, culminating most recently in the binational operation headed up by NORAD this past weekend, following the discussion between the Prime Minister and the President. Prime Minister ordered that the object be taken down. It was taken down. And now we're in the midst of a number of recovery operations, both in the Yukon as well as in Lake Huron, to determine exactly what these objects were, what their capabilities may have been, and we'll continue to await, with obviously a lot of urgency, what the precise details and analysis of those recovery operations are. They're being headed up by the Canadian Armed Forces, the RCMP, and the Coast Guard. As you know, Minister Murray will have a few more words to say about that. I'll also point out that I have been in contact with a number of my provincial and territorial partners, both in the Yukon, Premier Pillay, and this morning with Minister Bonardel, I beg your pardon, from Quebec, and we'll continue to stay stitched up with them. And we'll use every tool in our arsenal to make sure that we protect Canadian airspace and sovereignty. I don't know if Minister Murray, you'd like to add anything on the Coast Guard piece?
Well, thank you. And just to say that the search is continuing. We have the Canadian Coast Guard ship, the Griffin, that is in the search zone area. The Samuel Risley is heading on the way as well, and the Samuel Risley has underwater equipment that can assist with the search when debris is found. So the helicopter has. 2 helicopters have also been aiding in the search, and they've done 3 flyovers, and at this point we have not yet located the debris, but working very closely with the RCMP and the U.S. Coast Guard.
And is there any concern on your part as the Public Safety Minister about the Americans saying the first missile they shot at the object over Lake Huron just missed?
Well, I think first it demonstrates the cooperation between Canada and the United States, that through NORAD we were able to quickly deploy and effectively carry out an operation to take down an object that we had instructed be taken down. It's important as well that we give the space and the time that is necessary for the agencies that are on the ground to do the work, so that we can put an intelligence lens on it, understand exactly what the threats are. But I want to assure you and all Canadians that we will use every tool in our arsenal to protect Canadian airspace through NORAD, to protect our national sovereignty, and that is work that we are doing in conjunction with our American allies.
Has your office heard anything from your American counterparts on the trajectory of this missile? They said they tracked its flight path. The missile landed somewhere in Lake Huron. We don't know if it's the American side or the Canadian side. But is there any outreach there to see, where this missile could have potentially landed, since it just missed the balloon?
We're in constant contact with our American allies. We are closely coordinated at the operational level. This shows exactly what NORAD was designed to do, and frankly it is a shining example of NORAD at its best, which is quickly deploying, using all of the capabilities that are within the arsenal of both of our countries, so that we can respond to potential threats in North American airspace. That was the vision of NORAD when it was created out of the Cold War. It continues to serve us well today. We're reinforcing the capabilities of Canada through NORAD with a $40 billion assessment. We are enhancing our Air Force capabilities with the acquisition of F-35s. We are fully invested in this binational force, this treaty, which has helped us protect our airspace and our sovereignty, and we'll continue to use it going forward.
J'aimerais vous parler d'Haïti parce que le Premier ministre s'en va aux Bahamas pour le sommet de CARICOM. Il va beaucoup être question de la sécurité en Haïti. Qu'est-ce que le Canada pourrait faire de plus pour venir en aide, par exemple, aux forces policières haïtiennes? On a déjà envoyé des blindés, je crois, un peu d'équipement. Est-ce qu'on pourrait aider avec de la formation? Quelles sont les options de plus pour le Canada pour aider Haïti?
D'abord, nous avons pleine de préoccupations sur le terrain au Haïti. C'est une tragédie, c'est une démocratie qui a plein de défis. Ça, c'est la raison que le Canada a envoyé d'aide humanitaire, d'aide entre les diasporas ici au Canada. Il y a plein de leadership dans notre caucus et en même temps sur l'autre côté de la Chambre. Donc, on va continuer de rester en contact avec nos alliés, comme avec les États-Unis, pour chercher des autres façons comment on peut aider le peuple, les gens d'Haïti, pour améliorer la situation sur le terrain.
Avec des policiers sur le terrain, des militaires sur le terrain, est-ce que c'est une possibilité à vous?
Écoute, il faut évaluer la situation avec beaucoup d'attention. Ça, c'est la raison que notre ambassadeur les Nations Unies, Bob Ray, allé au Haïti. Ça, c'est la raison qu'on avait envoyé quelques agences de la GRC et des autres qui marchent dans mon portfolio. Et on va travailler en étroite collaboration avec tous nos alliés pour aider Haïti comme on peut.
Est-ce que ça fait partie des options?
Oui. Oui,
Oui, sur un autre sujet, le projet de loi C-21, cet après-midi, on va entendre des témoins qui reviennent pour parler de ces amendements-là que vous avez retirés au gouvernement. Qu'est-ce qui est fait depuis le retrait de ces amendements-là? Quel travail est fait pour trouver la voie à prendre? Vous voulez, si je comprends bien, une alternative, avoir quand même une définition de ce qui est des armes d'assaut interdites, mais vous voulez refaire vos devoirs. Vous en êtes rendu où? Et ça pourrait prendre combien de temps pour arriver avec l'alternative?
C'est une bonne question, mais d'abord, je veux remercier tous les invités qui vont offrir leur témoignage. C'est pas facile pour les victimes, pour les survivants, pour rencontrer leurs expériences avec les violences causées par les armes à feu. Je sais, par exemple, il y a des invités de la police souviennent de les victimes de la communauté de la grande mosquée à la ville de Québec. C'est pas facile. Donc, il faut souligner ça. En même temps, le gouvernement a une stratégie compréhensive qui inclut des politiques qui font de bon sens. Par exemple, le projet de loi C-21, où il y a des nouveaux outils pour la lutte contre les armes à feu et les violences causées par là-dessus. Par exemple, des peines plus sévères pour eux qui trafiquent illégalement les armes à feu, plus des outils pour les services policiers pour arrêter plus des armes à feu illégales à nos frontières. Donc, il y a très bonne politique dans le projet de loi. Et sur la question de les armes en main, on a retiré, mais en même temps, il y a une importante question là. Et la question est comment on peut renforcer le bon travail sur la question sur les armes d'assaut. Et les armes d'assaut, comme les AR-15, qui étaient utilisées dans les plus grandes tragédies, par exemple à Nouvelle-Écosse, à Truro et Portapique, et aussi à la ville de Montréal, à la Polytechnique. Donc, moi et pour notre équipe, on va avancer ce sujet avec beaucoup de sensitivité, avec un esprit de bonne foi, avec des consultations avec tous les Canadiens pour intégrer toutes les perspectives dans ce projet de loi.
How long will we search before giving up, and what happens if we don't find any?
You're talking now about the aerial objects, and we're back to that. Okay, no problem. I just wanted to be sure. Well, look, these are operations which are being conducted as we speak. It is important to highlight that the stretches of land in the Yukon where operations are being conducted are very remote, difficult to access, and especially given the current conditions environmentally, given the fact that there's a lot of snow, a lot of wind, et cetera, you will appreciate that this is going to take some time. Equally, in Lake Huron, the exact and precise whereabouts of the object are currently being ascertained by the Coast Guard, as you heard Minister Marie say. And so, first things first, let's hope that they can find the objects. Once they can find the objects and the debris of those objects, then there can be a forensic analysis about exactly what they are, what their capabilities are. And as to how long do these operations get conducted, it's important to defer to the experts in the field. So the Armed Forces, the RCMP, and the Coast Guard will be best situated to provide answers to those questions. And I'll just say, I know there's a lot of ongoing curiosity to get to the bottom of what all of this is. I appreciate that, and that's why yesterday we provided a briefing from those agencies, and we'll continue to look to them to answer those questions going forward.
Parce qu'on vous a pas entendu, c'est quoi les chances de retrouver ces débris-là en plein hiver, en plein lac? Quelles sont les chances d'y arriver, d'après vous?
La location, le territoire de Yukon et la location au lac Huron n'est pas facilement accessible. Il y a plein de défis dans le contexte de l'hiver, le climat, etc. Donc, il faut donner le temps et l'espace qui est nécessaire pour l'agence qui travaille sur le terrain, qui gère les enquêtes, pour faire le bon travail, et on va continuer d'offrir des mises à jour quand il est disponible.
The incident response group of cabinet wasn't convened in this instance, and I'm wondering if that tells us something about the threat to national security perceived from these objects, or if there's something we don't know and isn't being told about how worried we ought to be that these were a threat to national security. Not just civilian aircraft, national security.
It's a fair question, and the IRG, the Incident Response Group, is one tool that does allow the Prime Minister to convene responsible ministries. But I would say in this particular instance that in no way the absence of the convening of that IRG, or of the IRG, has impeded Canada's ability to respond swiftly and decisively. And I would cite the call between the Prime Minister and the President of the United States, which led to the rapid deployment of NORAD, which then in turn led to the successful operation in taking down one of the objects, which in turn led to our ability to protect North American airspace, which is the whole point of NORAD. And we'll continue to use every tool in our arsenal to protect Canadians, both in the air, the land, the sea, the sky, and everywhere. Thanks very much.
You up for that? Or?
Sure.
Okay. So we've learned that when the U.S. Air Force fighter was taking a shot at the suspected balloon up near your riding, it took 2 missiles to take down. The first one went into the lake. U.S. Air Force, I believe, if I'm reading my notes right, said they were tracking it and fell in the water. Do you have any concerns about trying to shoot things down over one of the Great Lakes close to your shore, or is that an issue or not? I don't know. I just got to.
Well, I think when we were talking yesterday, we were just talking about all the facts and the details, and one of the facts obviously is that there were two missiles fired. But again, still trying to get more information. We had our briefing last night, which was helpful, and I think the people at NORAD and the Navy, RCMP, and all the other Canadian agencies working with the U.S. agencies are still trying to put together all the facts and details around the issue.
So there's no point. It's until we have all the facts and details.
Like, they know that they picked it up. They know where they picked it up in Alberta, in southern Alberta. They know the height or the altitude, the elevation which the object was flying, but still, I think they're still working on all the specific details about it. So it's going to be tricky because obviously everything's in Lake Huron right now, and this is a treacherous time of year to be doing search and rescue and everything else. And the shores, at least call it the western shores on the Ontario side, you know, there's still ice out several feet, and in some cases a lot more than that. So who knows where the debris is and what condition the debris is, and I think the same other issue in Yukon as well. So wait and see approach. The Minister and Ann has been helpful just trying to keep us briefed, so that's great. That's good collaboration, and there was a good cross-section of MPs at the briefing last night. So it wasn't anything top secret we discussed, but just helpful information. So we'll see. But in regards to the missiles, that'll be something that we'll have to hear from the U.S. officials and again from our Canadian military.
Good to see you. I've got to ask you about the CRTC.
Totally understand. Go ahead.
So do you have an ethical problem writing to the CRTC? It seems you do.
Well, as Parliamentary Secretary, I certainly do. As a Member of Parliament, I wouldn't. As I recognized when the issue was first brought up, I recognized that I called the Ethics Commissioner's office to find out immediately if I had contravened the law, the rules, and it seemed that there was a prima facie case for that, and there was a ruling today which confirms that. I am very sorry, and I do apologize to the people and to the people of Canada for doing so. Now, there are steps which have been taken to make sure that this won't happen again.
Is there you not reading the rules, your legislative assistant not saying, hey boss, don't do that?
It's just one of those things where as an MP you certainly are allowed doing that. Parliamentary Secretary has. There are a lot of, it's not in a, now we're getting into the weeds here, but just so that you know, it's not against the code itself, it's against the rulings of the Ethics Commission that he has given in the Gill report, and I think there was one other report from that. It was my error not to take a look at that and to see that this was indeed could be interpreted as trying to seek a particular outcome. So that's the reason why I accept the report, and that's the reason why certainly I do apologize for it.
The thing is, I mean, the guidelines, I believe, from the Commissioner on Parliamentary Secretaries not being able to write the CRTC date back to 2013. So when you took on your position as Parliamentary Secretary, ought not that have been put before you, that, hey, you know, here are the ethical guidelines?
There are a lot of guidelines which have been written for Parliamentary Secretaries. If you take a look at it, it's quite extensive. I make it a habit of consulting with the Ethics Commissioner on a regular basis. I regret that we didn't do that in this case. It's deeply embarrassing to have that happen because of the relationship that I do have with his office. And as was noted in the report, I do had a long-standing relationship with them. It's unfortunate. I stand here chastened.
I got to ask you, the government critics
Don't feel bad. Go ahead.
Are coming up and they're counting on the figures and saying, hey, it's now 5 by their count ethics violations.
I think, you know,
by the government. So
yeah. Look, this person was neither a friend, this person was not an associate, this person has never given money. I never met this person outside of the work that I do as a Member of Parliament. But I still made an error, and I'm wrong, and I'm deeply sorry for it.
I wasn't trying to totally broaden this, but Minister Ng, the Prime Minister, other folks have been sort of hit for violations of the ethics code in the last while. It seems to be bigger. That's where we're at.
Again, to be fair and to give this a little bit of context, the ethics code was only invented just before we came into government. So we're really the first government to be able to face that. It's not like the ethics code has been in place, or this form of the ethics code has been in place for 50-odd years. It's really something that is new to this government. And given the number of decisions and the number of things that we've done over the course of this government, to have these kind of issues brought forward, and especially the character, you know, the quality of these contraventions, I think, frankly, it's you know, on balance, it's a pretty damn good government. No, aside, this is, like I said, it's one of those tough days, deeply embarrassing. I came out to help out you know, people in my riding who were launching a television channel for Francophone media that was aimed at the Black and multi-ethnic communities. I'm sorry that I didn't seek the guidance of the Ethics Commissioner before I wrote that letter. It would have been something easy to do. It was also something easy to do not to do it. And it wasn't done for any purposeful reason. It was just an oversight on our part, on my part.
Appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem. Take care.
Hi, Minister. With Mr. Fergus and the CRTC, I've got to ask, does your government have an ethical issue? We're up to like 5 ethics violations, I think, by somebody's count. You were one of them? Just got to ask it.
Well, I can only speak for me, and the other day I had an opportunity to speak to the committee, of course, and I've apologized to Canadians. I take responsibility for what was in the Ethics Commissioner's report with respect to me. As I said that day, the issue had to do with the recusal. For that, I regret that I didn't, but at the time, work was really needed for Canadians, and I will continue to do the hard work that is that I'm committed to do for Canadians.
Should Canadians get that worked up about a 25 grand contract? There's always a devil's advocate on these things.
I think I will let Canadians make the decisions that they will, but all I can say to Canadians is that I am committed to working hard for them, for the people in my riding, and every day here in this place in the House of Commons. Good, thanks so much.
Okay, so basically, Mr. Fergus has apologized for his ethical lapse going to CRTC. By our count, that may be 5 ethical lapses. 6. Are you distraught or unhappy about this, or what do you think?
Look, right now Canada is presided over by a government that is fraught with ethical law breaking. We have a Prime Minister who is the first in Canada's history to have been found guilty of breaking ethics laws, and not just one time but twice. And we've seen that trickle-down effect through his cabinet and in his caucus. And it sends the absolute wrong message to Canadians that, of course, there's no consequences for anyone in the Prime Minister's cabinet, because the Prime Minister would have to accept responsibility and discipline himself, frankly, for having broken those same ethics laws.
They're pointing out they're the first government to actually exist under an ethics act or something like that. Do you think this is normal?
The Accountability Act was introduced by Canada's Conservatives when we were in government. We believe very strongly in being accountable to Canadians, and that's why it is so significant that having served their mandate with a majority government, Canada's Conservatives had a Prime Minister who didn't find himself on the wrong side of the Ethics Commissioner, like Mr. Trudeau has on 2 occasions. And so, the Prime Minister has demonstrated that he's unwilling and unable to have high ethical standards in his government. So it's time that he gets out of the way and allows Canada's Conservatives, who are ready to operate with ethical principles. Thanks so much.
I just need a clip from you on Adrian Dix taking the health deal. The premiers are taking the health deal. What do you think?
Well, any money into our healthcare system is welcome. So I can understand why premiers who are dealing with the urgency of the healthcare crisis will take money, but I would have liked to have seen at least a counter proposal.
You may have to show it to them.
Like billions, or it's all the only thing we're dealing with here is billions.
Well, we spent $331 billion in this country in 2022. $331 billion. Adding $4.6 billion a year is not going to make the transformational change that we need. Premiers know that. Canadians know that. So I think it was a lost opportunity. I think the Liberal government, they didn't negotiate. They basically imposed a settlement, and there was provincial capitulation. That's not negotiation. And I would like to say, that's 2 dictatorial federal approaches in a row is part of the reason why we're in the problem we're in today. And until we have a real partnership, federal and provincial and territorial governments sitting down negotiating, talking, I don't think we're going to make transformational change.
But if I can't remember, it sort of feels sometimes that the kids are coming and saying, we want more, or give me more money, but I want to spend it on what I want to spend it on.
It's
a weird dynamic.
I think both sides were correct in one way and both sides were wrong in one way. I think that the federal government, the provinces are right that they needed more money. I think simple math will justify that. On the other hand, the federal government's correct that that money should come with appropriate conditions. And that's the answer. But really we had an imposition of a deal by Mr. Trudeau, and I think that he's splitting the provinces up. He's dividing and conquering. That's what happened last time. That's what happened again. My goal is patience and improving the Canadian healthcare system. So the real question to ask is, will this money fix the problems in our healthcare system? I think they'll help a little bit, but I don't think they'll achieve what we want it to achieve.
Thank you for stopping.
Thank you.
Ask you about the Rideau Canal. You referenced it in QP yesterday. Doing a story about the Rideau Canal today and how it won't freeze. What do you think?
Well, so we don't know whether or not it will open this year, but it hasn't yet for the first time in 51 years. Clearly, we are seeing more and more the impacts of climate change, and the policies of the reckless new leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, are we don't care about climate change, and we want to make pollution free again in Canada. We want the biggest of our polluters to not have to pay for their pollution, where everyone else across the country and around the world are making more and more efforts. It's simply unbelievable that in 2023 we would have a political party in Canada who says we don't care about climate change.
And just coming back to the canal.
Yes.
Not necessarily the leader of the opposition. Is there any? I mean, there's obviously nothing we can do. We can't raise
No,
so.
we can't. No, unfortunately, no. But I mean, I cannot talk about the Rideau Canal and not talk about climate change, because this is yet one other example of how our climate is changing in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you for stopping by.
Thanks.